Just over 3 weeks until Election Day, voter registration is underway across the country. In fact, it's actually already closed in about half of states. By the way, check your state's registration deadline. Early voting has begun in a handful of states. Mail-in ballots are being sent out. All of this is to say the election is, in fact, underway. If you're a voter in Virginia, for example, you will receive a ballot that looks something like this. The choices before you will include Kamala Harris and his running mate Tim Walz, Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance, and 4 other candidates, including Jill Stein, Cornel West, names you might not be as familiar with. So let's talk for a moment about these third-party options. The majority of Americans right now are dissatisfied with a two-party system. They want other party options. But historically, third-party presidential candidates have never been that successful in America. Let's look to history to understand. In 1992, Texas billionaire Ross Perot ran for president as an independent against Republican George H.W. Bush and Democrat Bill Clinton. Perot ran on a platform focused on economic reform and reducing the national debt, as well as political and congressional reform, and in opposition to the trade deal NAFTA. He ran a real serious national campaign. At one point, he was the leading candidate in a major national poll. He participated in all 3 national debates on stage with Clinton and Bush. He ran ads, he made speeches, and in the end, he won nearly 19 million votes. That's nearly 19% of the popular vote overall. That's a big deal. Ross Perot made the strongest third-party run since 1912, and he still didn't win one single electoral vote. Of course, Clinton ended up winning the election. He won the popular vote by just under 5 points. He won the electoral vote by a landslide. Many Republicans at the time blamed Perot for Bush's loss, saying he pulled votes away from Bush, though Perot's impact is still up for debate. But now, just weeks until Election Day, the 2024 race is tight and getting tighter, it seems. Lest we forget, President Biden won 4 years ago by winning key swing states by less than 1%. Trump did the same thing in 2016. And this race is shaping up to be just as close in entirely similar fashion. According to a recent Wall Street Journal polling, Trump and Harris are within 2 points of one another in 6 out of 7 swing states. That is well within the margin of error. Nationally, they are tied. This election may be decided by a handful of voters, in some cases by uncommitted and third-party voters. No matter your number one issue, no matter your key motivation for voting or not, whether it's reproductive rights or it's climate or a ceasefire deal or economic policy or immigration, no matter your motivation, understand that your voice, your vote is critical, at least this time around, and that there are really only 2 choices before you. Joining me now is the syndicated radio talk host of the Thom Hartmann program and the New York Times bestselling author Thom Hartmann. Dean Obeidallah also joins us. He's the host of SiriusXM's The Dean Obeidallah Show, and he's an MSNBC daily columnist. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being with us. Tom, on Friday, the Democrats released an ad against longtime Green Party leader Jill Stein, saying that, quote, a vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump. Jill Stein is polling at about 1%, but in some of these battleground states, particularly Michigan, that could be decisive.
Yeah, this is exactly what happened. And good morning, by the way. This is exactly what happened in 2016. In Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the number of votes that Jill Stein got in each one of those 3 states was greater than Trump's margin of victory. So assuming that most of those votes would have gone for Hillary Clinton instead, had she not been on the ticket, Hillary Clinton would have become president. And now some of her people and apparently her as herself as well are kind of bragging, we're going to teach the Democrats a lesson. Apparently the lesson is, we'd like to have Trump for president.
Right. Well, and it's worth mining that a little deeper. Dean, Harris continues to struggle to secure Michigan's very large Muslim and Arab voters, some of whom are still concerned that she hasn't done enough to articulate what she will do about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Harris has called for a ceasefire. Her voice, she continues to voice support for Israel, but voters can only vote, right? All they can do is cast a ballot or not cast a ballot. There are a lot of people who are saying they're either not going to cast a ballot for her, they might sit it out, or they might vote for Jill Stein.
There were 2 recent polls, one by the Arab American Institute and another by CAIR, the big Muslim group, Usually Democratic presidential candidates, 2-1 support of Arab and Muslims. It's a different community, but there's an overlap, 2-1. This time it's neck and neck. And you have Jill Stein among Arab Americans Muslim Americans getting big support. Arab Americans, there's more gravitating to Trump than I've ever seen before. It's neck and neck with Harris. But still, these polls show things can change, Ali. And they ask people questions. And if Vice President Harris would talk about not just empathy for the Palestinian people, but a policy change, that's what people want to hear. Like, I will enforce the Foreign Assistance Act that conditions military weapons that have to comply with international law. That's already our law. And saying you'll apply to Israel and everyone we give weapons to. We will no longer protect Israel completely in the UN. If they violate international law, we will allow them to be sanctioned. That little things, it's not turning your back on Israel. It's bringing it in compliance with international law. That could change it. It would animate people to come out and vote based on the polling. And I just spoke to Layla Elabed, the co-founder of Uncommitted, who their top priority is defeat Trump. So I want everyone to understand the top priority of Uncommitted is defeat Trump. Some of them, though, are not going to vote for Harris. That's the other issue. She can get them, though.
Tom, I come from Canada, where we have multiple political parties. There are some countries that have too many political parties. Italy has been a great example of that. Israel has been an example of that, where you can't sort of secure governance when everybody's always got a minority. That said, I'd like more political parties in America, but our structure is built around two parties, and that would need a certain amount of structural change so that a guy like Ross Perot, who got 19% of the vote, could get one electoral vote. At the moment, voting for a third-party candidate can only be thought of as a protest vote.
Absolutely. The problem is that we got our system of government, our system of voting in 1789. And, it was the first time it had been done in thousands of years, and they didn't quite get it right. We have what's called first past the post, winner take all elections. And when you have that kind of an election system, and we're one of, I believe, 7 or 8 democracies in the world that have this, you end up with a two-party system. There's just no way around it. The solution to that was was developed in 1861 by John Stuart Mill, where he proposed proportional representation, where, say, if your party gets 12% of the vote, then they get 12% of the seats in Parliament. And the result of that is that you can have multiple political parties, and then you have to form coalitions and work things out. And there's a lot of negotiating going on, but it's far more democratic, and it really opens things up. The only way to do that in the United States would be with a constitutional amendment, which ain't going to happen.
Right.
Or the first way to do that, excuse me. The second way to do that would be with a national instant runoff voting program, which the Green Party has frankly been pushing for years and has gotten in more than 100 American communities now, which is a great thing. But we don't have it nationally. So without that, without instant runoff voting nationally, anytime you vote for a third party, you're basically voting against the party that you feel closest to.
And that's the interesting part, Dean, that for a lot of the people you're talking to, for better or for worse, they are possibly feeling closer ideologically to the Democratic Party. They're thinking this is a protest vote, but it may just be a spoiler. And are people able to make that distinction when you talk to them about it?
Sure, they are. And my plea, Ali, to my fellow Democrats who are speaking to people who are concerned about the policy in Gaza and our U.S. funding Netanyahu in Lebanon, we're watching loss of life there, is don't tell them, oh, Trump's going to be worse. We all get that. Everyone understands it. Show some empathy, show some compassion, understand the issue, talk about that, and pledge that if Harris wins and you support Harris, we will work with you to change American policy going forward. We can only look forward. And Ali, I've talked about this. Martin Luther King has said we are tied together in this mutual garment of destiny. What affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. Trump is a threat to every one of our communities in this nation that is not MAGA. So we have to defeat Trump. As much it might hurt some people in my community to cast a ballot for Harris, I understand it. Believe me, I get it. But the stakes and the threat by Trump is too much to every community that we believe in and that has supported us in the past.
Tom, I want to look for a moment back again, as you pointed out, to Michigan in 2016. Jill Stein, the Green Party leader who's running again, and the Libertarian Party nominee Gary Johnson collectively won about 222,000 votes. That's 5% of the vote. Trump ended up beating Hillary Clinton by just over 10,000 votes. Right, 222,000 votes went to third-party candidates. Donald Trump won by 10,000. Similar patterns have helped Trump narrowly win in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin that same year. And this is exactly the kind of margins we could be looking at again this cycle.
Yeah, I think this is the great fear. We certainly saw this in 2016. We also saw it in 2000, where Ralph Nader polled about 90,000 votes in Florida, and George W. Bush won by 500 and change. So, this is an indication that we really need to be looking at our voting systems. Instant runoff voting is, I think, an important fix to this kind of system because, having third parties available, being able to vote for a third party, I think is an important thing. But in this election, voting for a third party, at least Democrats voting for a third party is handing a vote to Trump.
And that's the way people have to think about it in this moment. Do whatever you want to do, but just understand what the consequences are of what you're about to do. Guys, thanks very much. Thom Hartmann is a syndicated radio talk show host of the Thom Hartmann Program, author of multiple books, including The Crash of 2016, The Plot to Destroy. And Dean Obeidallah is the host of SiriusXM's The Dean Obeidallah Show. He's an MSNBC Daily columnist and author of The Dean's Report on Substack.